We find the defendant, Daniel Villegas, not guilty of...
This is Daniel Villegas, a 46-year-old man who was wrongfully convicted by the El Paso Police Department at the age of 16 for the double murder of two teenagers, namely Armando Lazo and Bobby Robert England. This all began when on 10th April 1993, when four young men, Armando Lazo, Bobby England, Jesse Hernandez, and Juan Medina, were shot after returning from a party. Jesse and Juan escaped, but Lazo and England were shot and died. The EPPD officer, Marquez, was investigating the murder case. He first interrogated Michael Johnston for 8 hours, threatening him. The other suspect was David Rangel, who was taken into custody on 21st April 1993. The officer threatened David, pressuring him to confess. Thus, out of fear from the officer's threats, David claimed that his cousin, Daniel Villegas, who was 16 at the time, is a murderer in the statement he forcefully wrote to the police officers. On 22nd April, Daniel Villegas was arrested by the EPD police. Officer Marquez threatened Daniel for getting him raped in jail, and every time Daniel was interrogated, he was denied the accusation, but the officers forced him to sign the confession. His first trial ended with a hung jury. In his second trial in 1995, he was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment. During his time in prison, Daniel suffered mental and physical abuse from the guards and spent more than 18 years behind bars before significant developments in his case came to light. In 2012, key evidence emerged, including witness testimonies that contradicted the prosecution's version of events. These witnesses revealed that Villegas had been at a party during the time of the murders, undermining the credibility of his confession. With the support of organizations like the Innocence Project, dedicated legal advocates, and relentless efforts from his defense team, Villegas' case gained momentum. In 2018, after years of legal battles and multiple trials, the charges against him were dropped. Daniel Villegas was finally released, having spent nearly 2 decades wrongfully incarcerated.
Defendant Daniel Villegas, not guilty of...
On May 22, 1975, in Greenburgh, New York, a 17-year-old high school student reported a distressing incident. She stated that while walking home from school around 3:15 p.m., she and a female friend were approached by an armed man near Woodlands High School. The man used his belt and other materials to restrain them. He assaulted one of the young women. The other managed to break free and seek help. Both victims described the assailant as a black man in his early 20s, clean-shaven with closely cropped hair. Approximately 2 hours later, Officer James Fleming of the Westchester County Parkway Police stopped 23-year-old Leonard Mack and mentioned that he matched the victim's description. Mack, a Vietnam War veteran residing in New Rochelle, southern Westchester County, wore a black fedora and sported a gold earring in his left ear. However, his attire did not entirely align with the teenager's description. Mack firmly maintained he was not involved in any assault and had been with his girlfriend at the time. Subsequently, the unharmed student was taken to the Greenburgh Police Department. There, she reviewed a photo array of 7 black men and identified Mack as the assailant. His photo stood out mainly due to the visible clothing and a calendar displaying May 1975 in the background. Mack faced charges of first-degree rape and 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon. He was convicted on all counts on March 29, 1976, and received a sentence of 7.5 to 15 years in prison. He was granted parole on December 13, 1982, and later relocated to South Carolina. In 2019, Mack reached out to the Innocence Project, seeking their assistance. The organization took on his case in May 2022, and half a year later, requested the Westchester County District Attorney's Conviction Review Unit to examine Mack's claim of innocence. Finally, on September 5, 2023, Justice Ann Minihan vacated Mack's convictions and dismissed his charges.
Now I can truly say that I'm free.
Mr. Mack was in prison for 7.5 years, but it took 47 years for the court to say he was innocent of raping and assaulting 2 girls. On October 3, 1994, at approximately 9 p.m., a crucial event unfolded at Marcus Boyd's residence on Louisiana Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. Greg Elking was present visiting Boyd to settle a $40 debt related to a drug transaction. Shortly after this interaction, 2 masked individuals, clad in dark clothing, swiftly approached the porch. One of the masked men ordered Elking to leave the porch, after which they unleashed a flurry of gunshots at Boyd before hastily fleeing the scene. In the aftermath of the incident, Leslie Williams, Boyd's girlfriend, urgently dialed 911 at 9:07 p.m. Despite being inside the apartment at the time of the shooting and hearing the gunshots, Leslie Williams informed the police that she did not witness the actual act. However, she swiftly contacted her cousin, Pamela Williams, to relay the distressing events. Pamela Williams then paged 20-year-old Lamar Johnson. Johnson and Boyd shared a close friendship and were known to be involved in drug-related activities together. However, tensions had recently arisen between them, leading to a falling out. The victim had been shot multiple times in broad daylight, but no tangible evidence connected Johnson to the crime, and there was no apparent motive for his involvement. Johnson became a suspect solely based on an informant's identification of the shooter by a nickname. The intricate web of alliances, drug dealings, and a devastating act of violence served as the stage upon which Johnson's quest for justice played out. Upon thorough review, the state's attorney's office determined that the eyewitness testimonies presented during the trial were unreliable. The 2 witnesses who had identified Johnson as the assailant had conceded that he merely bore a resemblance to the actual shooter. After spending 28 long years behind bars, Lamar Johnson was ultimately exonerated. This redemption came about due to the credible testimony of 2 individuals who absolved him of any wrongdoing in the slaying of Marcus Boyd.
How did Marcus die?
Me and Philip Campbell killed him on his front porch.
The presiding judge, recognizing the existence of clear and convincing evidence, declared Johnson innocent and officially overturned his conviction.
The circuit filed herein for the benefit of Lamar Johnson is granted. The conviction of Lamar Johnson in State v. Lamar Johnson, calls 22-941-37068, is hereby set aside and held for.
In the early morning hours of February 14, 1993, police were summoned to the Buffalo, New York, home of Lynn Dijak, and found the woman's 13-year-old daughter, Crystalline Gerard, dead in her bed. Dijak, who was 30 at the time, told the police that she had spent the night at a wedding reception with a boyfriend, Dennis. She said they had returned home and quarreled and both left. She found the girl dead in bed when she got home. An autopsy performed by the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office determined that the girl was strangled. A small amount of cocaine was detected in the body, but the narcotic was said to have played no role in her death. Dennis became a suspect after Dijak said that she believed he had come back to the apartment after their quarrel while she was still gone. He was arrested several days later, but after passing a polygraph examination, he was released. In May 1993, Wayne Hudson, a childhood friend of Dijak, told police that she had confessed to killing her daughter. Dijak was arrested in December 1993 and charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide. Dijak went on trial in Erie County Court in April 1994 and presented no witnesses at all and was found guilty, largely based on flawed forensic evidence and unreliable witness testimony. On April 20, 1994, Dijak was convicted of second-degree murder, and on June 7, she was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
I didn't do this.
13 years later, in 2007, DNA tests revealed the presence of a man's DNA in skin cells found in a smear of blood on a wall in Crystalline's bedroom. Dennis could not be ruled out as the source of the DNA. Hence, a petition for a new trial was filed. On February 13, 2008, prosecutors disclosed that new autopsy findings showed that Crystalline died of a cocaine overdose, not strangulation. Following these revelations, Dijak's conviction was vacated and she was released from prison. In 2008, she was exonerated of all charges and the state officially declared her innocent of the crime.
Is hereby granted. Ms. Dijak is released upon her own recognizance.
Devontae Sanford's story is a tragic case of wrongful conviction that unfolded in Detroit, Michigan. In 2007, at the age of 14, Sanford was accused of a quadruple homicide. The case was primarily built on Sanford's confession, which he later recanted, alleging that it had been coerced.
Times when you get shoot shot your gun, I'm not sure, but I would say about 9 to 10 times. Is that correct? Yeah.
Despite inconsistencies in Sanford's confession and a lack of physical evidence linking him to the crime scene, he was convicted and sentenced to multiple life terms in prison. His trial and subsequent imprisonment sparked public outcry and drew the attention of advocates and legal experts who believed in his innocence. About 2 weeks after Mr. Sanford was sentenced to a 37 to 90-year prison sentence, Vincent Smothers, a hitman, confessed to the 4 killings as well as to 8 more. In 2016, new evidence emerged, pointing to the actual perpetrators of the crime. The hitman Vincent Smothers, who had previously confessed to the murders, provided detailed information that matched the crime scene, further implicating him and an accomplice, Ernest Davis. This evidence, along with the efforts of Sanford's legal team and advocacy groups, ultimately led to his exoneration. In June 2016, after spending nearly 9 years wrongfully incarcerated, Devontae Sanford was released from prison.
He spent 9 of his 23 years behind bars, but today a man who had confessed to 4 murders when he was only 14 is a free man after prosecutors acknowledged that he didn't do it.